Welcome to another FiddleHed fiddle lesson. Now I'm going to show you ways that you can make playing scales a lot more fun and interesting. I just call this melodic variation. And so I'll show you a little bit of what we're going to do. If we take a basic scale, let's do G major. We can add little patterns to that to make it more interesting. Another one would be or and so on. All right, so I'm going to give you a few of these to work on, and these things, again, they're called melodic variation, and three main uses for these patterns. First is it'll just make you a better player. Your fingers, especially if you're a beginner, you'll be really helping your fingers find the correct position to play in tune. It'll also just improve your technique, your coordination between fingering and bowing a lot. The second big use of these is that it'll help you really pick up tunes more quickly, because these patterns are used over and over again. If you apply them across the major, minor scales and triads and things, then that's so many tunes rely on these patterns. So you'll be quicker at picking them up and hearing how tunes work. And the third use of it is improvisation. So having these little patterns, they become sort of like your tools and your building blocks for building ideas and playing solos and stuff like that. So getting this stuff down will be really useful, and I'm hoping to make it fun somehow. And so just let me know if it is fun, and if there's any ideas you have to make it, how you approach this. Maybe I didn't think of something, okay? So you can send me a message or a comment or something. So let's just jump into it, shall we? Again, if you don't know the major scale, like a G, simple G major scale, I'm not going to really teach it now. I'll put a link to a video for that, and you should do that first. But if you even have a simple major scale, you can do this video. So the first pattern, I just call it 1, 2, 3, all right? And basically, for each note of the scale, we're going to go walk up 3 steps. So in the G scale, which started on the open G, that's the first repetition of our pattern. The next note of the G scale is first, finger on G, and so the next repetition is, and then the next repetition starts on second finger, and then on third finger. So let's slowly do all these. Makes sense? If it doesn't, just play it. The important thing is to play this, and then a light bulb will go off eventually on how it all fits together. So here's this variation, 1, 2, 3, applied to the first 4 steps of the G major scale. Alright, with me so far? If we do the exact same fingerings, but start on open D, we finish out the G major scale. So again, I call this 1, 2, 3 because you're basically, that's the formula you use for each note of the scale. 1, 2, 3, then start 1 note higher, 1, 2, 3, then 1 note higher, 1, 2, 3, then 1 note higher, 1, 2, 3. All right, so I'm now going to do what I just did, but across the entire G scale going up. And now what we'll do is we're going to go backwards. So an easy way to go backwards is to just go backwards. Just start where you ended. All right, let's do that again, starting third on D. And keep going down. All right. A more common way to do the backwards motion is to also reverse the pattern. So that sounds fancy, but all it means is that instead of going on the way down, we're going to start at the top and go. I'll do that again. I also think this way is more musical. I'm not sure if it is or if it's just me, my personal preference or something. So here it is, here's that again, going backwards now. Alright, so if you do that up and down, this is what it would sound like. Alright, so if any of that was confusing, just rewind and listen to that a bunch. Just listening is also practice, and then try to play along. Now what I'm going to do is the same exact pattern, but if you noticed I went short, short, long, short, short, long. I'm now going to do all shorts or the same length note, and it'll give it a very different feel. So just, I'll play a little bit, so it'll go something like... and so on. So I'm going to do that slowly now, and you can play along or maybe listen at first. 1, 2, 3. Alright, sorry if that was too fast or too slow. Seemed like a decent tempo, but then at the end I was like, oh, maybe it's too fast. Alright, so that's the G major scale, and we applied this variation that I just call 1, 2, 3, just because it's sort of like almost like a formula to describe it. I don't have a more commonplace name for it yet. Alright, so we can do that, that pattern on any scale. So D major would sound like... and so on. Let's say you did E Dorian, if you know E Dorian scale. 1, 2, 3, let's go back to G major. You could also add bowing patterns to make it more interesting and fun. You could add slur 3. That actually might make this easier. If you do know the slur and you add slur 3, I think it might make it a little easier because you really can feel the chunks, the pattern chunks. It's a little tricky when you have to do the slur across the string here. 2, 3, open D, and here. So those are some technical points to be tricky to do slur 3, but it's a good challenge, right? And then another one you could do would be slur 2, separate 1, like. So these are jig patterns, and I'm gonna make a note to link this to the jig bowing video I have, because it would be a good intersection. So you can apply, basically with anything you can fiddle with it is the way to make all this music more fun, is to see what you can do to tweak it and practice. And the practice itself is like the art form, because fiddling is all about tweaking and fiddling and making it cool and different every time, all right? So, so that's the 1, 2, 3 pattern. You could even do it on a weird scale, like the chromatic scale, which is very difficult. That's all I'm gonna do of that, but the point is, play with it, all right? So let's move on, let's do a new pattern. And so this is kind of like that one, but if you notice, that one was like a 1, 2, 3, it's kind of like a jig feel, kind of like a waltz feel. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's like waltz. Jigs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that plays right into those. But what I'm now gonna do is give you a pattern 1, 2, 3, 1. So for every step, we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 1. And go up 1 and start over. 1, 2, 3, 1. Go up 1 and start over. 1, 2, 3, 1. And I call this one I have kind of a more down-to-earth name besides the mathy name, which is Are You Sleeping? Are you sleeping? So it's another way to remember this pattern. Are you sleeping? Okay. So, let's work through the G major scale, lower octave with this pattern. So we have, that's the first repetition. Next one starts G1 and goes. Here's that again. Let's just put those first 2 steps together. Okay, the next step starts second finger on G and goes. Alright, here's that again. And then the next step starts third finger on G. So if you really learned the 1, 2, 3, you'll find that this one kind of becomes really easy. All right, so I'm going to do the first 4 steps. All right, and so if you have that down, it's really not that big of a step to do the next 4 notes that are the next part of the scale. It's the same fingering, starting in open D. So the whole pattern going up the scale. and then going backwards on the scale, we start first on A. Here we're reversing the pattern, or maybe inverting it. I'm not sure which is the right way to describe it. But we start at the top and go 3, 2, 1, 3. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 1, we have 3, 2, 1, 3. Next part of the scale will be starting on open A. Let's string those together. Alright, and then let's keep going. The next rep of the pattern, starting repetition of the pattern, starts D3. And then D2. Let's do what we have so far going backwards, starting first on A. If you get that down, then we just do the exact same thing, but start it first on D now. I'm now going to do the entire pattern 1, 2, 3, 1, also known as Are You Sleeping, up and down. You could also do this, this and all the patterns on the next octave of the G scale. And so on. All right, sorry for wanking there. Let's move on. Oh wait, I should point out, there's just tons of tunes that use these. Probably like every tune has a simple pattern that's repeated. But one that comes to mind that's very common is Arkansas Traveler, the B part. So this really just does this pattern in reverse, the 3, 2, 1, 3 it does, which is the reverse of 1, 2, 3, 1. So I got a lesson up for that. I'll put a link to that for you. Also, there's a tune I haven't done a video lesson for yet called Blackberry Blossom, which uses 1, 2, 3, 1 as well. So it does 3 reps of that, but it goes backwards, but without reversing the pattern. Interesting, huh? So it's like... So again, that's 1, 2, 3, 1. Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? Just tons of examples. Those are the 2 that pop to mind. So let's move forward. This video is getting long. I have one other main pattern I want to show you. And I really don't think there's these 2 basic ones. There's 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, which is kind of related to that. The next one is 1, 3, or skip a step, or thirds. So if you know music theory and this is your second instrument, you've heard the term thirds, this is thirds that we're doing. So back to G major. That's what we're about to learn, all right? So the formula is 1-3 because you're always on the scale. You're going 1, and then you're skipping a note in the scale and going to the third note. So 1-3, 1-3, 1-3. It'll make more sense if I play it. And then the other kind of very commonplace name for it, or down-to-earth name, is skip a step. So let's go to the G scale. We're gonna go starting with open G, second on G. Here's that again. All right, then the next repetition, we'll start on first finger and go. So far in this pattern on the scale we have. All right, then we're gonna do second on G to open D. And then third on G to first on D. Now we put those 4 reps together. Here's that again. I got an idea. Let's go backwards now, just after 4 steps. So we'll start first on D. So again, I reverse the pattern on the way down. 3, 1. Another way to remember this pattern is M-O-U-S-E. If you're an old guy like me and you remember the Mickey Mouse show, that's this pattern, but it's the reverse going down. 3, 1, 3, 1. M-O-U-S-E. So, if we do this pattern on the first 4 steps of the G scale, and then up and down, it sounds like. Okay, and then if we do the whole scale, well, I'm just going to do it. You just listen at first, but this fingerings we just did will apply exactly once we go to the D string. So I'm going to do the whole thing up and down. So cool, that's fiddling. We added something to a scale, made it more interesting. You can do things like that within tunes, and then we can keep fiddling. We can add a rhythm to it. Let's add hoedown. Or triplets. Or swing doubles. Or swing singles. So sorry, I'm just going through a bunch of ideas. This is not really meant to be a play-along track. Maybe I'll create that, but I'm just trying to, really, you can come up with a lot of things I maybe didn't think about, like some other just way to do this to make it interesting and different. Whatever you come up with though, be sure to repeat it and practice it multiple times so that you're not just kind of randomly trying out this and that. You know, do it up and down the scale actually. Bowings, anything. Okay, cool. And so let's see, let's do one more related to 1-3. We can do 1-3 1 1-3 1 1-3 1. So it turns 1-3 into more of a triplet feel. If I do it on a scale, I'll do it quicker once. I'll just do a little bit of it slowly. So on G we'd go 1-3 1, and then the next step, starting first finger to 3 and back. And now we're gonna, the next step will start second finger and go to open D. And then third finger on G to first on D. So doing those slowly. Then do all that starting on D. Now go backwards and reverse the pattern starting first on D. Now start on A for the next step. Good, I'm now going to play 1, 3, 1 up and down. So those are all the patterns I'm going to give you today. I also just want to demonstrate the play along track and how that works. I'm going to play a little bit of it along with the play along track now, and it's just a fun way to practice these skills. So I'm going to play a drone track, the G drone with no beat. Hopefully you can hear that. And so you can just use this droning G to play the patterns. Or to practice the scale straight up and down. To help with your tuning to have this constant note. And then if you are at the level where you're exploring improvising, you can start playing with these tunes, or with these patterns. Just kind of start playing with them and noodling with them. So I think that about covers everything. There's some more patterns, but these 4, which are really just 2, you basically have 1, 2, 3, and 1, 3, and some little variations within those cover lots of things. And again, they come up in tunes over and over again. It'll help you a lot. And I just wanted to say one last thing, that the way I teach is that you write your own scale book. All right, so that means you come up with these ideas and then just try to keep practicing them. And this is a way to do it. Instead of, like, when I learned, I had to learn just pages of like the etudes and scale variations. And so you have just pages of stuff like this that you have to read over and over again. Just the same thing repeated slightly differently, and it's just straining your eyes. And so what I set out to do was to give you a tool in a way to not have a book, but to write your own book. So you're not actually going to write it, or unless you want to, you maybe keep a notebook where you write these ideas down. But the point is, you know, it's a creative way to practice versus just drudgery. The hard thing is that you're kind of on your own, and you have to, you know, be diligent and hit up the same patterns and kind of be consistently practice something up and down. Anyway, enough talk. Let's go fiddle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the FiddleHed Fiddle channel. Nanu nanu.
Thanks for watching the video.
Excellent.